So, Eric, what movie did we just watch?
Hey, Minecraft movies.
And what are we doing today?
A movie review.
Hey, Eric, tell me about the intro, like the movie.
You know, uh, I definitely thought that it was a really good way, I would like to draw the audience in and to captivate their attention because ultimately, if you don't catch the audience attention right away, then how in the world are you going to expect that your audience is going to be invested in the rest of your film?
I do agree with that a little bit. My problem is the beginning of it was kind of like explaining a whole entire history. And I think it would have been more interesting if it wasn't like a story that was kind of rushed. I felt the beginning was kind of rushed into the actual scenario. I think if it was told a little bit better, or if it was actually more played out, I would like it a little more. Um, like if they would have probably added another like 30 minutes or even just 15 more minutes to the movie, I think, and especially in the beginning, I think it would overall just been a better beginning.
I do agree. While I can see where they're getting at by trying to get the audience's attention, but at the same time, now keep in mind, people, I have no bias for or against Minecraft. I mean, I played it a few times here and there, like 10 or so years ago. So I'm not as invested in Minecraft as I am in other franchises, like, say, Sonic the Hedgehog and so on and so forth. But I mean, ultimately, I went into this film being very open minded. I was like, okay, I'm going to go watch this movie and I'm going to see how it turns out, see what are my honest thoughts, you know, without that biased mindset to it. And honestly, I thought the movie was just okay. A lot of the things that Taylor are saying, I completely agree. It's a lot of expedition, and some of it felt rushed. Like I wanted to get invested into well, like the overall story and invested into the characters, but I'm like, but by the end of the movie, by the time when it got over with, I felt underwhelmed. I was like, okay, what did I even watch? Like, what even was the overall story? With like everything being so rushed, it's like you don't really have the time to actually process it all.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I I like some aspects of it. Like I think Jack Black was a great choice for Steve. Okay. But at the same time, I feel like he wasn't as into it as you would expect. Like he played it good, but in other movies, I just feel like he was more enthusiastic. In this one, he was more kind of a child in the movie, but also an adult. It was like he was trying to play like the adult that never got a childhood.
yeah,
And I just felt like that was an odd feeling for Jack Black.
I can see where you're coming from about that. But to play devil's advocate, though, from what I can tell, the primary market for the Minecraft movie actually is the younger audience. You know, hence as to why it's rated PG and all that. So it can appeal to the market. So I may not know everything that Jared Hess, who is the director of this film, also was the same guy who helmed Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. And guess who's in that? Jack Black. So therefore, it makes sense why that Jack Black is in this, since that both Jack and Jared have a history. So then therefore, I feel like that Jack Black was wanting, maybe he wanted to appeal to that market of like the younger audiences. So maybe that could explain why.
And I get that. But I always kind of wonder if Jack Black, if it was designed more for kids, would they have been better off starring pretty much all teenagers? Like, it's one of those things that I feel like Jack Black is a great character and a great actor to play in it.
Yep.
But I kind of wonder, like, different aspects if they would have changed a few things. Like, I love that they actually did have, a teenager, but also, like, it brought in a kind of an interesting aspect, the two kids that lost their parents and they were struggling through all that type of stuff while also taking on the adventure of this. I think that kind of played into, having the kids in there and kind of brought it home for the kids. You know, it's one of those things that I do like it because if it wasn't for the teenagers in the show, I don't think it would have truly played towards the kids market. I would think it would have been more of an adult comedy.
Yeah, and I can't help but feel like that they were trying to appeal to both markets of teens while also trying to have something in there for the adults, like with Jack Black and Jason Momoa by having them in there too. So, but yeah, so ultimately at the end of the day, while this film definitely does have a lot of Easter eggs to the video games, as far as I can tell, because when we saw it, there were people like who would clap
Mhm.
quite a bit. And that did get pretty irritating because, we are just trying to watch the movie, but people were there trying to act like as if it was a rock concert when it's not.
Yeah, I'm gonna play a little bit of devil advocate here.
Okay.
And, as much as it was annoying to some people, these were teenagers going to a movie that was ultimately still part of their childhood. So when they saw references to the movie, I think it was actually pretty good that and when they saw references to the game, I think it was pretty good that, they recognized and I think the movie really spoke out to the young crowd. Like they had the reference to Legend,
Mhm.
which honestly, like, the fact that they brought Legend in, Legend is such a um famous YouTuber that unfortunately passed away at a younger age than we were really expecting life. But the fact they brought in such a motivational person for the game, I mean, the game had Legend in it. And spoiler alert, yeah, we're talking a little bit about what's in the movie, but they brought the pig with the crown, which is standard for Legend. And they brought up Legend in the actual movie, which I thought was a very good touch. And I can see why people were like really excited for that.
That is fair.
Um, but I did have a little bit of problem with the crafting. There's a lot of crafting that was accurate, but then there's crafting that wasn't accurate. And I kind of felt wronged by it. Because like one of the images how they built a diamond sword was putting 3 diamonds straight, which you don't do it like that. But you know, it kind of felt wrong by how it was done in some aspects, and how they added a new iron golem. I don't know if this iron golem was accurate. It was. We have someone that plays Minecraft a little more than we have in the past couple of years, but I kind of feel like there's a lot of newer references than when I played. I haven't played in the past couple of years. So I feel like there might be more newer references than what I'm used to. So if you haven't played in a couple of years, you may not like you may look at it and go like, this isn't how I remember it. So I think it was nice that they brought newer stuff in, but I wish they had more older stuff. I think it was just too much of the newer. And as much as I love Minecraft, I have my own bias about Microsoft buying Minecraft. But that's going into a whole nother talk there. But I think it was a good touch bringing in the actual crafting and showing actual recipes that were supposed to be in the game.
Yep.
I think that brought an actual thing in, and also showing how to craft it. For the players that don't know how to craft some things, it was actually a good touch to that.
And one of the things that came across my mind when we went and saw it, I was like, I'm really surprised that they didn't make this movie sooner. But what I realized, nostalgia sells.
Yes.
And so that's probably why that they waited a little bit over 10 years. So then that way with the crowd, like who were children when the game first came out, now we're a little bit older
Mhm.
and now they have the nostalgia for Minecraft. So I'm pretty convinced that that's why they waited over 10 years to make a Minecraft movie.
And, I do like that aspect because you can see it in the actual movie bringing in the older crowd into it, the older players by bringing Legend in. You know, it's been quite a few years since we've seen Legend since he's passed, unfortunately. But, um, all respects goes out to Legend because he was truly someone that brought in a lot of people and meant a lot to the Minecraft community. But seeing the older crowd being brought in, because Minecraft, we had the beta stages and then we had the full release. Full release, I think, was 2011, and I think the beta 2010, and the beta was like 2009, if I remember correctly. I may be wrong on that. We're going to fact check it and put it in. But, you know, we definitely see the older crowd being brought in and the younger crowd. And I think that was a fine touch because we don't see, like, we were starting to see a lot more movies bring in both crowds. And I think that's a very fine touch. But I think it also brings in the challenges involved. Like, what challenges do you see that trying to bring in both crowds?
I mean, at the end of the day, you really truly cannot make everyone happy. So that's the hard thing, which I feel like they're trying to, like by trying to have these big names such as Jack Black and Jason Momoa in it, while also trying to have like some younger actors in the movie, to try to appeal to the younger crowd. So it's a really hard balance. And I mean, ultimately, you can do the best that you can, but ultimately, that doesn't matter how well you do it. At the end of the day, you really truly cannot please everybody.
Yeah. Now, Jason Momoa, his character was like he was stuck in the 80s. Like
Yeah.
his character was just like stuck back in time. And I almost kind of feel like this movie kind of felt like it was like the 90s. It was like supposed to be filmed in. And just kind of felt odd that it was like an older scene it still felt like. While also bringing in some like more recent stuff, I kind of felt like the timelines of where the characters are from versus the actual game doesn't add up to the actual game. But also, like, there's a little bit of it that felt like it might have been the early 2000s, mid 2000s, whenever, this original scenery was. I kind of felt odd about, the scenario at the beginning of it. Because it felt like, Jack Black and Jason Momoa, they were really theming them off of the 80s. And then we bring into the future and kind of like, this is a kind of an odd scenario. But also, like, they were bringing in like what would motivate the people to be in the movie. Like, I not be in the movie, but be in the game. You know, Jason Momoa being driven by, about ready to go in bankruptcy, losing all of his finances and being a washed up gamer, starting to refine the joy in the game and into life again. And then we have Jack Black playing Steve, and it was like bringing him in was like, he was the child that always wanted to mine, but he couldn't because apparently miners don't belong in the mine. Which I kind of did laugh about it because they did bring in the child yearned for the mines, which was honestly a great joke that they played into it because, you know, we as well, not older adults, but adults, we get that reference now. But the kids don't really get that reference.
It goes right
It
over
goes right over
their head.
And I felt that that was a good joke that they brought in, especially in the beginning, because that's kind of like the joke that we have around Minecraft. Because you see all the kids playing Minecraft, it was like, man, those kids are really yearning for the mines.
Yeah. And so as far as the comedy goes, and now look, I do understand comedy is completely subjective, and But in my opinion, I may have crackled, at some of the jokes I had, but did I laugh out loud thinking that, oh my goodness, this is the funniest movie in the entire world? Like, well, like, oh my goodness, this is the new Liar Liar or Ace Ventura. I didn't think it was that funny, but I mean, at the end of the day, it was just my own opinion about the comedy.
Well, it's not. I don't really like see it as like a big name comedy. Like I don't see it as a not big name, but a big huge comedy. Like it's not designed to be like this super funny movie. I think it's kind of like, oh, we're gonna throw a few jokes or a few references here that are kind of, would bring a smile to the older Proud Steaks, but will also kind of not be too, you know, over funny in a sense. They try to keep it kind of more settled. Which I did kind of like because, we don't want to have, I feel like the comedies didn't take away from the seriousness of it. The seriousness of it, Siri. What are we doing? We're talking to iPhone now. Our recorder right now, our John, is making all kinds of funny faces at us, so we're trying not to laugh.
Keyword being try.
Try, right? Um, but I think the movie was overall relatively rounded. I think that it could have been slowed, maybe 15, 30 minutes would have made a huge difference in the quality of the movie.
But yeah, I definitely do feel like that was one of the film's biggest problems is pacing. It definitely felt like it was going way too fast. It's where it's like, can you slow down just so that we can actually process everything?
I really think that it was really like fast in some parts and really slow in others, and it was really like fluctuating in speed a lot.
Yeah, it felt very, very it felt like a very uneven about its pacing for sure.
Yeah. And I think, even though like the actors did a great job, I really do think the actors did a wonderful job. But the pacing, I think the script could have used a little bit more of time on it. And just the overall recording could have used a little bit more time.
It could, yeah.
What do you think about the ending?
The ending, honestly, I kind of felt, what I felt during around the end of the movie. I mean, this is the thing that will separate indie films like from studio films. This is not an indie film; it's a studio film. A lot of it felt very formulaic. Well, like about how cars falling from the sky, and then someone comes in and just happen to be at the right time, the right place, right time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it felt very formulaic. Happy ending and all that. I mean, you definitely can make happy endings work, if you properly build up to it.
Yeah.
Like how a really good example with one of my favorite movies, with the Lion King, you see Simba, go through all that trauma, with the stampede and Scar and being manipulated and being
Yeah.
and all that. So therefore, at around the end, when he then earns it, spoilers for a 30-year-old movie, well, like how Simba then takes his place back as king. With that happy ending, it truly felt like that it was earned and it was worth it.
Yeah.
So therefore it feels more satisfying with this sense that I thought a lot of the pacing went way too fast and some of it, slowed down a little bit, with that uneven, component to it. I see where they're trying to get at because people do like to have those happy endings, with the exception for most horror films, of course. But I just felt like that it just felt formulaic, by the numbers. I just didn't feel like that it was earned.
Yeah. Well, I kind of felt like halfway through the movie, once we knew who the enemy was and what the end game was, I think we already knew what the ending was ultimately going to result in. We knew the result of the ending halfway through the movie. And I think that took away the ending.
Yep.
But one thing that really bothers me is at the very, very end, why is it that we always end up Jack Black singing in a song?
And about that, thank you for reminding me. So look, I get it. Jack Black's known for Tenacious D, but at the same time, not every movie that you have him in, like he has to sing. Like
Yeah,
when he sung, it felt so out of place. Like they made it very, very clear that this is not like a musical, such as with Lion King.
no, no.
I swear, I'm not trying to make, parallels to Lion King. I'm just trying to use that as an example.
Well, I mean, you like Lion King so much, you named your dog Simba. I think,
But yeah, he's a very sympathetic dog. But anyways, with Lion King, they
no,
set it up right away that it is a musical because the very first scene actually is a song.
yes,
With this, they didn't have that, it just felt like that the impression that they give with the first scene is how that
no,
this is gonna be like your popcorn flick, like for the whole family and whatnot.
no.
So that's what I got.
So, like, one of the problems I had, and it's not so much of a problem, because I think the couple of the songs that were actually played in the actual song, like Jack Black singing about his lava chicken, was kind of it brought a little bit of funny laughters into it for me at least. But at the very end, Jason Momoa was criticizing Jack Black's about his singing, and then we at the very end we have Jason Momoa and Jack Black singing in a rock band. Why is that? It just feels out of place. It doesn't feel right.
Now that I
No,
thought about this, maybe they did that as a joke, just trying to point out, just how ironic that is, that he was going from saying, "Oh well, don't sing," and then at the very end he is singing. So maybe it's a part of his arc. I do not know the full intention what the filmmakers had. It would make sense that that would be the intent. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate about it. But ultimately, there have been movies where Jack Black has been in where he didn't sing, like with the remake of King Kong. And I can't believe that came out 20 years ago now, and I saw that in theaters. I feel old now, but so yeah, and there have been plenty of other movies that Jack Black has been in where he didn't sing. And now I'm not against having him sing in a movie. It's just that for some movies it does work, but some it doesn't. Now I know
no,
that he did do a movie out of Tenacious D. I think it was called like The Pick of Destiny. So in that movie, it makes sense that he would sing
yeah,
because it's about his band. And obviously, in a band, people are gonna sing. But imagine in the remake of King Kong, imagine as soon as he saw King Kong, it's like, "Here's King Kong." It would be so out of place. Like, Chad, what you doing, buddy?
well, didn't Jack Black? What was it? School Rock or
School of Rock.
yeah? That one makes sense
It
for
does.
him to sing.
It does.
It brings in that aspect, but this one, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel natural. It doesn't feel like it's actually providing to the actual movie, except in that chicken song. That one there did make kind of sense, but I kind of like that they brought Jason Momoa as the arrogant person. He was just arrogant through half the movie, and then it was kind of like towards the end, he kind of like after we thought he might have died. It was kind of brought in that he kind of changed his ways, and I think that's really good because we saw character development.
Yep.
And we also saw a little bit of character development with Jack Black and the other two characters. I don't remember their names, but
I don't either, and that's not a good sign.
yeah. So I mean, it was one of those things that I wish we saw more of. We knew who more of the characters were, like the big characters, all the characters. Really, I wish we saw more of you know bigger names in a sense. But other than Jack Black and Jason Momoa, those were the only two that we really knew. The other ones kind of were like, Who are these people?
Now, there was that one younger girl in the movie. I
Yeah.
could have swore I've seen her in something before, but now that I'm starting to piece the pieces together. I think she was in Wednesday. I think that that's the same girl who was wearing that one purple tux. I think that that's her.
No,
I'm 99.9% sure, but hey, maybe somebody in the comments, can, would like to testify if I have that right. Just the entire time watching the movie, I'm like, I could have swore I've seen it from somewhere. But now actually recording this, now I'm like, wait a minute. Now I think I know what I've seen her in before. And it makes sense because, yeah, Wednesday's been a pretty big hit.
yeah. Wednesday was a big hit. And I think this one is still actually a pretty big hit. I think it's going to be one that we're going to continue to see, a lot of people talking about maybe for another 6 months to maybe even a year. I think we might still see it like that.
Yeah, and from what I've heard that this so far. Now, if I'm wrong, that's fine. But from what I've heard and from what I understand, this is now the highest grossing video game movie of all time.
Really? Well, I mean, that's not surprising. Minecraft
Yeah,
is a huge game.
it is.
Like, it's a huge market for Minecraft.
It is.
So, I mean, it's like, it's kind of, not surprising that it's, doing really good because, Minecraft has a huge crowd.
Oh, it does.
Not only just the kids, but, the
The
adults.
teens and adults. Like,
Yeah.
back when that game first came out, when I was a senior in high school, everybody at school was talking about it all the time.
Mhm.
And at that time, I was like, what are you guys talking about with Minecraft?
Yeah. You know, Minecraft has really developed over the years.
Oh, it has.
No matter how I feel about the overall, who owns it and all that, it has really grown over the years. It was big when it first came out, and it's going to be continue to be big. No, no, no. 2 minutes left.
Yeah. It's so big where I have seen people actually will recreate scenes from other movies in Minecraft.
Yeah. Minecraft. I mean, we're still learning about the game development in Minecraft. Like, people are making computers in the game to run other things. Like, there's a person that made a redstone computer that plays Doom. Yes, you can play Doom off of redstone in Minecraft, which
Not surprised.
it's shocking, Minecraft physics are just, a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this movie really brought those physics in a little bit.
Yep.
Bringing the Minecraft rail, it brought in redstone. It wasn't to the advanced levels that we see in some of the YouTubes and some of the people that are making these systems, but it brought in great physics. So we're hitting our end of the time right now. So let's kind of finish this up.
Okay. So ultimately, my thoughts in a nutshell: I didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was okay. I can see what they're getting at, but I just feel like that it was a miss for me. Could I watch it again as a time waster? Sure, but it was okay.
And for me, I definitely like the definite feel of it. I would probably watch it again. I have, my mixed feelings about it, but overall, I think it was a pretty solid, rounded movie, except for the few, things that they could have improved on. But I think it was pretty much well rounded. Whether people fully understand the game or not, I think ultimately someone that is new to the game can ultimately be able to get into it.
Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more content coming very soon.